Hi, my name is Ziemowit and you are watching Ziemowit About History YouTube channel. Today I would like to share with you the history of Ukraine, how this great country was created, because most of you didn't know how it came in history that so great Slavic country was created in the Eastern Europe. I will explain you in details, step by step, from ancient times through medieval times, how Ukraine was created and what is it is, and if it's true that the Ukrainian state can be called the inheritance of Kievan Rus, or does they have really the right to hold Kiev against Russia? In the ancient times, the great steppe was inhabited by the Scythians. Scythians were nomad warriors traveling from the great Eurasian steppe. The Ukrainian steppe was home to Scythians. After them, relative to Scythians, came Sarmatians. And Sarmatians made cooperation with Slavic tribes living more to the north in the forest area of East Europe, and they fought together against, for example, Romans. After Sarmatians, there come Gothic Germans. Goths came in the 2nd and in the 3rd century AD. They came from the terrain of today Eastern Poland. And Goths created great empire combining Sarmatians, Slavic tribes, and Gothic tribes coming from north. This great conglomerate was destroyed in 375 by Huns that come from the east and crushed everything on their way, and then they settled in the center of Europe. After Huns came Avars, after Avars came Bulgars, came Hazars, came Magyars. All these tribes were traveling through Ukraine from the 5th to 10th century. In the 10th century, Pieczengs came, and in 11th century came Kipchaks, also known as Polowcy, and in the 13th century finally came the Mongols. But this was the situation on the Great Steppe. But in the northern part of today Ukraine, great Kievan Russia was created. It was a country created by Rurik, and he was a Viking from the Scandinavia, and he united Slavic tribes and created a strong country that will last until the Mongols, until 1233. And this Slavic empire was known as a Kievan Russia because Kiev was the most important city and the capital of the state. And today Ukrainians love to tell that they are descendants from the Kievan Russia, but in fact Kievan Rus were destroyed by the Mongols, and today Ukrainians are not much descendants from them. After destroying the Kievan Russia in 13th century, this whole region was under Mongol control, and this Mongolic Asian tribe, in fact, was in charge for another 200 years and was overwhelmingly strong and was subduing all tribes around. But of course Mongols also fade, become weaker and weaker, and in 14th century, Lithuania came to power. Lithuania, which was originated from Baltic tribes. Lithuanians were one of the tribes, and they fought Mongols. They won, and then they conquered almost all Kievan Russians territories. And now Lithuania in 14th and 15th century was the ruler of this territory. But as you may know, Lithuania came to marriage with Poland. First in the late 14th century, and finally this wedding was in the middle of 16th century. They made a union in Lublin. This union combined these two countries, Lithuania and Poland. And the byproduct of this unification was that Lithuania gave Poland all the southern territories that are today Ukraine. All this territory was given to Poland because this territory was very problematic for Lithuania. Lithuania was not so strong culturally to take over these territories. Poland was much culturally stronger, and this territory was in fact Russian. The people living there were Rus, not Lithuanians. So it was hard to command them. But also the more important problem was that it was very close to Tatars. Tatars that came as descendants of Mongolians, and Tatars were raiding this territory every year, taking people into slavery and looting everything they can. So this territory was very hard to defend because it was very vast territory, called like we have in United States Wild West. In Poland we have Wild East. It was such a situation, very vast open territory, very hard to defend, and raided all and all again by Tatars. And Poland took it, and Poland did manage to defend it quite well through the next 100 years. But in the middle of 17th century, there was great Cossack uprising. Cossacks was a people living in the steppe, in the borders of Rzeczpospolita, Poland and Lithuania. But it was Polish and Lithuanian Commonwealth. But they were able to withstand the Tatars' invasions, and they were very hard, able to fight, and very warlike people. And Cossacks were used by Poland to fight on different war theaters. For example, when Poland was fighting with Sweden, Cossacks were fighting among Polish soldiers. When Poland was fighting with Russia, Polish king paid Cossacks to fight against Russia. So Cossacks were mercenaries, very good soldiers, and very warlike people. But in the middle 17th century, Cossacks revolted against Poland, and it was a catastrophic event for the Polish crown, because at first Polish commanders neglected this uprising. They sent too few troops to fight them. These soldiers were massacred by Cossacks, and the uprising grown in power. Grown so much that it was very hard to cool it, and they managed to suppress this revolt after 10 bloody years. But in the meantime, in Pereyaslav, Cossacks agreed to go under Russian Emperor banner. And this is very important because they agreed to abandon Poland. So after this bloody war, this terrain of Ukraine was split between Poland and Russia. And Kiev was Russian since the middle 17th century. 100 years later, Poland was going weaker and weaker and weaker, and all three countries surrounding Poland, so Russia, Austria, and Germany, took over Poland, and they divided all Polish territories and Polish and Lithuanian territories between themselves, and Poland disappeared from the map of the Europe. And all Ukrainian territories came after Russian banner. But no one was talking about Ukrainian nation in 18th century. They were called Russians, as all Russians from the east. So in the 19th century was the time when Ukrainian nation was created by romantic visions of some intellectuals. You know, in Europe in 19th century a lot of nations were created because there was a time when nationalism grown and a lot of groups were looking for their identity, and they thought that this would be good to create a nation called Ukrainians. So it was Russians that were first conquered by Lithuanians and then being for 200 years under Polish rule. These were Ukrainians. Ukraina, the name, is from Polish. It means the land on the border, the land near the border. This means literally Ukraina in Polish. But they created their national identity in 19th century, but nothing happens. Russia was strong and Russia wasn't willing to give any authority to Ukrainian autonomy or even some kind of government. But in the 20th century, First World War happened. And of course, Austria and Germany used Ukrainians as a military power against Russia. They told they will give you independent state, will give you privilege, just fight with us. They told them, you are not Russians, you are completely different, you are Ukrainians, you don't need to be under Russian rule, fight with us and we will give you everything you want. In brief, so Ukrainian nation was very strengthened during First World War because Austria wanted to use them to fight against Russians. But as you know, Austria lose the war, Germany lose the war, and in fact Russia also lose the war because in 1917 communist uprising took place in Russia. This state collapsed inside, and thanks to these events Poland rise again. In 1918 Poland became independent again, and Poland was trying to take their former eastern territories, and they tried to take all Ukraine. In fact, in 1919, Polish general Piłsudski took Kiev, but was driven back by General Budionny, Russian general, who took Kiev for Russia. And in 1920, when the peace between Poland and Russia was made, Ukraine was split again between Russians and Polish. But most of the territory became Russian, and they created, as they created everywhere, Socialistic Republic. Here was Socialistic Republic of Ukraine. But Ukrainians were the main minority in Poland between First and Second World War. They were also the most problematic minority because some of them wanted to fight Polish government, make some riots, make some even terrorist attacks on Polish government. They even killed a minister of Poland. And we had some problems with them in the first half of 20th century, but it was only a minority of Ukrainians. Most of them were loyal Polish citizens. And when the Second World War came, Ukrainians were fighting against Germans like Polish citizens did, and but this war was very short. In 2 months, Poland collapsed under the hits of Germans and under the attack of Russians from the east. And then, as you know, Germans wanted to conquer whole Russia. So again, Ukrainians were used as soldiers, as a cheap human resource to fight against Russians. Germans gave them identity, gave them some privileges, and they encouraged them as much as they could to join Wehrmacht and fight Russians. And they did it. And they did it for another few years. Ukrainians were fighting side by side with Germans in the east. They were trying to conquer Russia. But as you know, Russia won the war. They fought back Germans and they fought back Ukrainians, and they go as much west as Berlin. So whole Ukraine was conquered by the Red Army, and Ukraine was part of a great Soviet empire, and the Ukrainian territory was called Ukrainian Soviet Republic. And no one ever was thinking about giving Ukraine independence. But as you know, Soviet Empire collapsed in 1991, and from the ruins of this great empire emerged a lot of great countries. For example, in the Central Asia, Kazakhstan, great country, emerged from the collapse of the Soviet Union, and also Belarus and also Ukraine. Ukraine emerged as a great country with a lot of population in the Eastern Europe. And now they had atomic weapons, they had quite strong military, and were very important player in this part of Europe. And here it comes where they were tricked, because United States gave them a guarantee that their territory cannot be taken but by any opposite power, mainly Russia. The cost of this guarantee from United States was that the Ukraine will give up their atomic weapons, and they did. So they disarmed Ukraine from atom weapon, and when in 2014 Russia took Crimea from the Ukraine. United States, as you know, did nothing to stop them. So Russia felt encouraged to take further territories from Ukraine because the guarantee from United States was not real. And when 2 years ago Putin wanted to invade Ukraine, he knew that United States or any other country will not support Ukraine. But in fact, some countries do support Ukraine, but they are supporting them with money and with military equipment to fight back Russians. But for me, this war is completely stupid because Ukrainians and Russians are very close to each other. So they should drink vodka together, not killing each other. The guys from Russia who are sent to war against Ukraine should say to Putin, Putin, go inside the tank and write the war. We don't want to shoot Ukrainians. And also Ukrainians should say, Zelensky, go to the front, take a gun, go shoot Russians if you want. We don't want to kill our fellow Slavic people. Unfortunately, they are doing this, but I hope this war will soon end and there will be no more bloodshed of Slavic blood there, because the war is only good for the great empires. There is nothing good for the common people living there. I hope I was able to introduce you to the history of Ukraine. If you have any questions about it, please write down in the comments. And if you like this video, please subscribe to my channel and we'll see you in the next videos. Bye, my friends.